Survive and Advance on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by Replenishing Care Technologies, the future of sports medicine. To check out more about replenishing technologies and the PEMF machine, go to thegruelingtruth.net, click on the banner at the top of the page. I'm your host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster, and right now I want to welcome in my co-host, former Indiana Hoosier, won a 1981 national championship, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Doing great today, Mike. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm great anytime we have our little Canadian friend on with us. So
we got Lukas back.
So right now, I would like to introduce, I mean, there's no big, long introduction because, let's face it, he's never really done anything. Lukas Weese. How you doing, Lukas?
Hey, Mike. I'm doing well. The one thing I did do was predict the World Cup final correctly. So, baby steps. Not on the level of what Steve's done. Certainly not at the level of what you've done, but baby steps.
Yeah. Okay, baby steps. So let's talk about the World Cup a little bit. And I would think they could make a movie out of this since France acted through the whole match from what I heard.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the World Cup in general, we've seen a lot of games where definitely a lot of soccer players could earn Academy Awards for their performances, but certainly France did on Sunday. I mean, I thought going in it was going to be really defensive. I mean, given France's 1-0 win over Belgium, but it ended up being 6 goals total scored, but France just looked too good, top to bottom. And congratulations to them. It was their 3rd World Cup final appearance in 20 years. They'll be celebrating today, I'm sure.
All right, Steve, what's your take on this spellbinding event that had the whole world's attention captured outside of this country?
It's freaking over. We don't have to talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
I understand soccer is a world sport, but it is not truly what I would call a true American sport. And with the exception of the shootouts, most of the matches I watched were pretty boring. 2 hours of 22 guys out there kicking the ball around and 3, 1, 2, sometimes 0 goals scored. Got exciting for about 15 minutes watching the shootout, and then it was over. And I'm thinking, what could I have done better with the last 2 hours of my life?
Exactly.
So,
and that brings us to this, though.
Yeah.
We also had Wimbledon. And, I mean, I think most people that saw it were riveted on Friday, where, what was it, 27 to 25 or something in the semifinals. Anderson wins. And then, you had the great semifinal that for some reason was stopped at 11 o'clock at night and continued the next morning. The final was a little anticlimactic, but we saw some great tennis, and it was something that I really haven't watched in 20 years, but I did watch this, and I thought the level of play was amazing. And I also think this is why you don't have a tiebreak in the 5th set. Play it out. Because I don't think this, Lukas, and we talked about this with soccer, but I don't think that match is near as talked about. If it's a 7-6, it goes to a tiebreaker, and it's 14-12.
No, I agree. I think the no tiebreaker makes sense. It definitely enhances the excitement. You even saw with Djokovic and Nadal. I mean, that went on till 10-8 in the 5th, and that was truly exciting to see those two players go at it in their 52nd appearance together. I just think it was a little unfortunate that the Nadal-Djokovic match had to be delayed and played over 2 days. I would have liked to have seen it done in its entirety on the Friday, but it ended up being a great match. Both guys played really well, and really congrats to Novak Djokovic for winning his 13th Grand Slam and being back in the winner's circle once again.
And then in the women's, Steve Risley has run around telling everybody how he told everybody that Serena was going to win Wimbledon and how I said she wouldn't and how I was going to be so wrong. What happened, Steve?
She lost. Now, I'll tell you my opinion. This is what the downside is of match play type events. on television. Many times the finals become anticlimactic. The two greatest matches, obviously, were the two semifinals matches where, Nadal and Federer. Yeah, well, Nadal and Federer were both knocked out. And then you end up it ends up being a 5-set match. But, I mean, I literally, honestly, God, I turned it off after Djokovic was up 2-0 and didn't watch it anymore, didn't realize it had gone 5 sets. So, I don't know. I mean, Wimbledon's over too. Let's get on to football. Let's get to the NFL. Let's get the season kicked off. Let's start college basketball, college football going again, and just get some sports that we can go through and talk about and have fun. I mean, there's just not a big enough audience, I think, in this country for soccer. There's not a lot of American involvement in tennis. Eisner is the best ranking American player right now. And I don't even know if he had anybody at the top. Huh?
Hasn't even won a major seat.
No. So I just think that, it's you're watching the event, not really the sport, because Wimbledon is Wimbledon. I don't know. I mean, it wasn't. Saw a couple great matches, and they did go, like you said, they did go. But then I think that ended up hurting because I think Anderson was probably so damn tired and beat up. By the time he got to Djokovic, he just was drained. I mean, you play a match like that, just a mental gut check, then a physical gut check playing that much tennis. So it just wears on you, and I just, I don't know. I hear your point, Mike. I do. It was riveting. It was riveting to watch if that had been the championship match.
But it wasn't the championship match. Way. I mean, what's the difference whether it's the championship match or not? I mean, it was a semifinal to go to the championship.
Yeah. No, I know. No argument.
I'm worth done. A couple $100,000. Did you want to talk about NASCAR real quick, since we're talking about stuff people don't want to hear about, and then we'll get to the stuff people want to hear about?
No, NASCAR is not really happening. NASCAR, the chase is starting to go right now. But I think the big event, though, was in honor of our good friend Lukas up in Canada. The IndyCar race up there in Toronto was a really strong event for IndyCar. It's one of the first tracks I've seen sold out, so the Canadians, know how to be spectators. We give them credit for that. The track was sold out. There was some really hard, good wrecking and rubbing and racing going on. It was a great finish. Scott Dixon won. I guess 44th race puts him in third all-time now on the list of victories behind Foyt and Andretti. But all in all, Lucas, your comment, it was your race. It was up there. What do you think? What do your country feel about having the Indy boys come up and invade your turf? Lucas is gone.
Well, it feels great. It feels great. Obviously, you said it right, Steve. Toronto, it's a great sports city, and even for a sport like racing, not as big up here as in the United States or other parts of the world. It's nice to see Torontonians come out and support, which happened to be a great race. So,
you know what, Lucas, you know what it spoke to. First, I want to say Toronto's a beautiful city. It's actually a gorgeous city. It's one of the prettiest cities I've ever seen in terms of being a big metropolitan area. But here's what it says. Okay, you kind of hit the nail on the head about it. With racing, looking at kind of a bigger picture, is this oversaturation of sports on television, what it does to attendance. All right, you guys don't get a lot of racing up there, obviously. Down here, I have 12 hours of archived tape from this weekend's NASCAR race in Kentucky. All right, I got every practice, every NASCAR show. Well, we're going to do a NASCAR show on the sports network here, so I'm starting to get brushed up on it beyond the A's and B's and C's. So, but there's so much saturation that people just don't feel they need to go to the events, and then you lose the pageantry of not being there. It changes, in Kentucky, and I know one of my cohorts we're going to work with made this big plea about how we need more tracks in small cities. And like in Iowa or other places like that. And, Kentucky was this situation 3 years ago where they fought tooth and nail for NASCAR for years. They campaigned, they sent roses to the owners. Give us a track. Build them a track in Covington. They put the trucks in there, then they put the small Xfinity cars in there. And then they get in that. In the first 2 years, it sells out. I mean, it's a line. There's a traffic jam.
Mm-hmm.
Half the people couldn't get to the race because it was so sold out. The roads were not equipped to handle it. I watched the race Saturday night. It's just the track's half empty. You know, and this is Covington, Kentucky, where they bled to have a race, a NASCAR race in Covington, Kentucky. And it's so slam on Covington, Kentucky. It's this oversaturation on television. And I got to look up at Toronto, and I'm saying, man, this is like an F1 race. I mean, people buy tickets to F1 race because it's an event. And it comes once a year, and that's all. They don't have a whole circuit running there. They don't have a TV station dedicated to showing. We see more F1 stuff in the United States than they see in Europe. But people go to the races. And look at Toronto. It's exactly what I said. They're here because they don't get exposed to it as much, and they love the smell of the methane. They love the smell of the cars, the burning rubber, the noise, and they go enjoy the whole event, and it does well. So it's really what I think sports in general has started to do to itself. You know, they start oversaturating so much to the point that people just don't attend anymore. Mike, you have an opinion on that, or you just kind of let me ramble?
I would just kind of let you ramble.
Okay.
My opinion is this. I think attendance at all sporting events is hurt, and I think all sports are hurt in general because of how much you can see the sports. I mean, we talked about this last week. We were just on a phone call. I remember 1977-78 Major League Baseball game of the week was a huge event. I mean, everybody went in at 1 o'clock. We went in from playing basketball or baseball. We went in to watch the 1 o'clock game. And I grew up watching the Cincinnati Reds, and I remember 1975-76, there was like 44 away games shown. There was opening day shown, and in one special game they would show in August or September at home. So you got to see basically a fourth, only 25 to 30% of the Reds games. So when anything was on, it was a big deal. If it was the NFL on a Sunday afternoon, you get a 1 o'clock game, a 4 o'clock game, and that was it until Monday night. And I think that now sports, when there's a game on, unless it's exactly your team, it's not a big deal anymore. I mean, I was a Reds fan that never saw the American League. When Monday Night Baseball would kick off in like June or July and the Angels are playing the Rangers, I'm excited for 3 days knowing I'm going to get to watch the two American League teams play. And, I mean, I just think that's gone now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even like the NASCAR race Saturday night came on at 4 o'clock on the West Coast. Well, I was doing other things at 4 o'clock. So I DVR'd the race and sat at home around 10:30 at night and watched the race. You know, my family was burnt out on TV. They were all doing, my son was out. My wife was like cleaning up the house a little bit. And I'm like, okay, I'll turn on the race real quick. And I fast forward to about the last 20 laps.
So you're going to sit on your ass and watch a race while your wife's cleaning the house? You never thought I should help her clean the house and then I'll watch the race? Because I just said it was on DVR so I could watch it anytime.
Right. Yeah. And I did. Okay. I did. But it's like, but you just throw it all whenever you can. And then I start scrutinizing and looking. I don't know. I think it's just that way. People have lost the initiative to go to events. I mean, but then again, because of the production going on, I mean, I got invited to go to a Rams game this fall by a guy I was playing golf with Sunday morning. And it's like, dude, I don't want to go because it's an hour and a half to get to the stadium. It's only 20 miles away, but it's an hour and a half to get there because of traffic. You got to park. You got to pay to park. You got to go through security, which is standing in a long line for an hour to get patted down. You go watch the game. You sit up there, and you end up finding out when you're at a football game. When I had Colts season tickets, and I would go to the Colts games, I watched the damn game. As I'm in the stadium, I watched the game on the Jumbotron because I could see better. I could see more going on because my seats were 10 rows up on the 20-yard line. Okay, we had them since the Colts migrated to Indianapolis. And every time the ball would come down to the 20-yard line, and we said, okay, we're inside the red zone. The damn TV camera would come down and park its butt right in front of my view of the 20-yard line. And the guy hoisted that camera up high so everybody at home could get a good shot of the play. Well, I'm sitting there looking at the Jumbotron, seeing what everybody's seeing at home with their free beer, their free parking, their restrooms right around the corner. Their ability to go to NFL Red Zone and change to another game. I mean, it just the art of attending a sporting event anymore has just been taken away by commercialism. And then you sit there, and in the middle of a drive, they get timeout, officials timeout, for 5 minutes worth of damn commercials. And you're in the stadium, you're just sitting there, staring at the dead ball, while the commercials are playing. You're not changing channels, looking at something else, maybe watching some of the NASCAR race that's going on while the football's going on. You're just sitting there. Television has really done a number on sports. It's really taken a lot. I know they're making more money. I know they're making more money off of it because these idiot TV networks are paying big dollars for these contracts to broadcast it. But I'm telling you, it's really taken the romanticism out of attending sporting events anymore. And it's really sad.
I'll just say this one point. I mean, this is why you're seeing declined attendance at college football.
I agree.
And basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the March Madness, I can sit at home in Canada and watch any game I want. I can watch a quadruple header of college basketball. I can watch any game I want on Saturday for college football. It's just too bad because these are, exciting events, but television has just put so much money into these sporting events that now I can just sit at home and watch any game I want. So it's a darn shame. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I'll make one final example, and then we'll move on, as I think Goodpaster's getting arrested again.
That's Lucas. You can tell that's a Canadian siren.
That's a Canadian siren.
That's Risley.
Jesus,
that's
Lucas.
Risley. They're coming to get
No,
Risley.
No, it's not me.
No, it's because I'm in Toronto.
But here's what happens. Thursday, the British Open golf tournament starts. Television coverage in Los Angeles starts at 10:30 at night and runs until 10 o'clock the next morning. Now, we're on a 3-hour time difference from the East Coast, okay? But so at 10:30 at night, I probably will crawl into bed, turn on the golf, and I'll probably zombie myself out and watch 12 hours of golf on TV. But the oversaturation of it is like, it's because I'll want to watch Tiger play, I want to watch Phil play, I want to watch Spieth play. And you'll just sit there. But at 10:30 at night, every day now for the next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they will have 10 to 12 hours of coverage on. I mean, why go to the event? First off, golf events are one of the worst things in the world to go attend live. Like, you can't see anything. You stand at one hole.
So for sure.
Come into it's terrible. Going to a live golf event is the dumbest move anybody can make, unless you want to try and get an autograph. And most of those buttheads won't sign anything anyway anymore.
All right.
So anyway. So let's do this. Back in the day, Mike, why don't we take a commercial break, and why don't we transition into what we used to know as some of the greatest sports rivalries that have seemed to gone away? Is that a good topic to talk about today, guys?
Well, it better be, because we already posted that's what it was going to be about. So we're kind of stuck
on
it now.
Why don't you throw?
And I know Lucas had one of his tutors come in and read books to him about what the greatest sports rivalries were.
Well,
so
I'm just going to say right now, let's get on the table. Number 10, we all have to agree on this, is Riggs versus Billie Jean King. That is the 10th greatest sports rivalry of all time.
Oh, sure.
Do we agree?
Oh, my.
So we start with number 9. We all agree that number 10 is Bobby Riggs versus Billie Jean King. It's number 10. We will start with number 9 and move forward.
Oh, 100%.
All right, Mike, you up for that?
No, I'm not.
So we're going.
I will not.
We'll start with number 9.
Something as stupid as what somebody on here has done before. All right, guys.
No, okay. But wait. Before you go, the movie was on HBO last night. Okay, Riggs versus whatever it was, whatever the thing was. I DVR'd it. I DVR'd it, and I asked my family. We had a great cookout. And we had some great dinner. My wife made fajitas and everything on the grill. It was wonderful food. I said, okay, I got a movie. We didn't pay to see it. Let's go watch this thing because we like the actors. I mean, the 2 actors in it are good talent. Let's watch it. They poo-pooed it like there was no tomorrow. They wanted no part of this thing. So we ended up we rented and watched Mamma Mia.
Oh, God.
Instead.
Oh, my.
I know. That's where it went. See, that's how bad that thing is.
Yeah, but you know what?
A fresh new movie.
ABBA kicked ass. I mean, Super Trooper.
ABBA was unreal.
Oh, no, the music was phenomenal.
The Winner Takes It All.
I mean, the only sad part about that movie is they let the stars try and sing the music. It's awful. It's like, geez, just lip sync and put the soundtrack in. Come on. ABBA's one of the greatest bands of all time.
All right. No, wait. Steve, you saying ABBA is one of the greatest bands of all time is dumber than Lukas calling one of the greatest sports moments of all time, Billie Jean
Okay,
King
Mike,
against Bobby Riggs.
I preface this by saying two things. All right? Two things. One, I'm 10 years older than you, so you don't really know ABBA like I know ABBA. And two, when I say they're the greatest bands of all time,
ABBA became popular when I was like 8 years old.
Mike, let me finish. They are one of the biggest dollar-producing bands, makes them great. I didn't say music-wise. I said just they sold more albums than virtually anybody and have more money than God.
Yeah. All right.
They probably could buy the Stones archives, the Beatles archives, and Michael Jackson's archives with pocket change they have laying around.
All right. Well, I'm going to get off here so we can go to a commercial break and maybe drown out the sound of Lukas being, his house being surrounded by SWAT team members. So we will be back in 42 seconds. Replenishing Technologies helps athletes of all levels train, recover, and perform at their absolute best. We do this by offering the PEMF 120, the world's leading pulsed electromagnetic field therapy device. Workouts, injury, and stress cause cells to lose their natural power. PEMF works like a battery charger, helping cells regain the power needed to dump toxins, take in oxygen and nutrients, and repair. 95% of athletes report less pain, increased range of motion, more energy, and they simply feel better after using PEMF 120. If you'd like to count yourself among that group, contact us at www.replenishingtechnologiesinc.com. All right, guys, we're back on Survive in Advance. I'm Mike Goodpaster with Steve Risley and Lukas Weese, and our topic of discussion today is the greatest sports rivalries of all time. Lukas? What's your number 10? I'm guessing Edmonton, Calgary, NHL.
No. So my number 10 is – my hockey ones are a little bit higher in the list. So my number 10 is going to be Martina Navratilova and Chris Evert. Two great ladies to me. It's one of the best tennis rivalries of all time. They met 80 times. Martina, of course, went 43 and 37. In their stretch from 1973 to 1998, they played, as I said, 80 matches, including 61 tournament finals. They were collectively held the number one ranking for 592 weeks. Martina at 332 weeks and Chris at 260. So I like Navratilova and Evert. They met a lot of times. They always produced some exciting tennis, and they were great for the sport.
Well, see, I've actually got that higher than you do. I've got it at number 8. And, I mean, it was the perfect thing for rivalries because if you look at our list, at least with mine, you got polar opposites. You got Chris Evert, who was the girly girl. You got Martina, who, let's face it, she was like a grown man taking on girls. It was really good. Steve, what do you got at number 10?
I had Canada versus Russia hockey series. I thought that in its heyday it was a great series between Canada and Russia, but I think that series has kind of diminished to the point to where it's fallen down my list just because it's not as great a series as it used to be. But I think when things were played out, in the 80s and stuff, there was no greater hockey match you can find anywhere than Canada taking on Russia.
I actually got that at number 6.
Yeah, I mean, it just only in hockey maybe, I'm not a big, huge hockey fan, but it's the only hockey thing I have on my list. And I do think it was a great series. When Russia and Canada hooked up, even non-hockey people like me turned it on to watch the match just because it was virtually good versus evil. We looked at Canada as being good and Russia being, the Iron Curtain thing. So, it is what it is, but I had it at number 10, mostly because I think it's just fallen off. I don't think the rivalry is as strong as it used to be for whatever reason. Maybe it's the breakup of Russia. Maybe it's, fewer professionals playing for national teams anymore, things of that nature. But I had it at number 10.
Well, I think what it is you had the thawing of the Cold War, plus on top of that,
right,
those Russians were players that weren't playing in the NHL. So it's not like these guys were friends, Lukas. They actually probably didn't like each other that much.
Yeah.
Oh, not at all. I mean, they were bitter rivals. So it definitely produced some great entertainment. I got that higher on my list.
Yeah, I do too. I've got it at 6. Steve just
justifiably.
found out about it the other day.
Fine.
So.
No. I found out about it when I Googled 10 greatest sports rivalries of all time. I forgot about it entirely.
I told you. I had it at 6. I didn't, just so everybody knows, I didn't Google anything to come up with this. All right, my number 10 are the only 2 college basketball rivalries I have on the list. I'm going to put them in a tie. I'm going to put Duke, North Carolina, and Cincinnati Xavier. Duke and North Carolina. What? What are you laughing at?
That low?
No.
That low?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry. I
How
didn't mean
dare
to interrupt.
you mock me,
my bad.
Risley? Why did you laugh?
I
Did
didn't
you
mock you.
laugh because I put Cincinnati and Xavier with Duke and North Carolina?
No, I mocked you because my Australian Shepherd's laying on his back with his paws sticking straight up in the sky.
Whatever.
So.
I mean, tell him to cover himself up, all right? He just laying around with everything hanging out, and you laugh at him. That's just not a way to raise a kid.
No, we cut off all the things that would be normally hanging out.
All the things?
No, all the things you can cut off when you do that kind of thing.
You mean you cut off 2 of the 3 things that you could cut off, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I didn't want to get a Michael Vick thing going here, and then we have PETA, protesting us.
I know.
PETA protested us because you took off their Peters. All right, number 9, Steve.
I had Martina in Everett, number 9. I thought, tennis was a little bit more popular for I do for all the reasons that was said earlier. I think it was 2 completely different personalities playing. Again, I don't want to call Martina Navratilova evil, but her intensity level was so strong. How she played the game so differently than Chris played it. I don't want to say this badly, like a girl, and Martina tended to play it more like a guy. In very physical tennis, where Chris was more, just very, very precise in what she did and everything like that, and always what looked good. So I had Martina and Chris at number 9.
All right, like I said, I had that at number 8. Lucas?
Number 9, I got Auburn versus Alabama, the Iron Bowl. Alabama, of course, and Auburn have met 82 times. Alabama leads the rivalry 45-36-1. Together they account for 33 SEC titles, 25 by Alabama and 8 by Auburn. And look, I mean, both have produced exciting rivalries. The teams really hate each other. I mean, we've seen some controversy in recent years where, like, a fan from Auburn poisoned an Alabama tree or vice versa. But I mean, in my lifetime, we've seen some exciting games between those, most notably recently when Auburn won on a field goal miss return for the touchdown. So, yeah, I got at number 9, one of the premier college football rivalries.
All right. I've actually got it a little higher, but I've got it lower than a couple other college rivalries just because Alabama-Auburn, until you get to 1980, was not very competitive rivalry-wise. But I do have it a little bit higher. My number 9 is Arnold Palmer versus Jack Nicklaus. Palmer burst on the scene in the 1950s, and pretty much by the end of the decade was the game's best player. Then Nicklaus arrives, and these guys in the 1960s, especially the early 1960s, engaged in a series of hard-fought battles and major championships. Most notably, probably, as Steve could probably tell you, the 1960 and 62 U.S. Opens.
Yes.
And since he was a little older, Palmer's game by the mid-60s started to fade a little bit, while the Golden Bear just got better and better. In the end, I think Nicklaus is revered by many as the greatest player in golf history. Palmer has to settle probably at number 2 or 3. Steve, number 8.
Number 8, I had probably a little sentimental thing here, and again, it's the same thing as kind of these rivalries have kind of fallen off a little bit. I went IU Kentucky.
Okay.
I think that's always been a great rivalry. It's been a great basketball and college rivalry. Obviously, 2 of the premier teams for a long point of time in college basketball. And, I put it well ahead, IU and Purdue, because I think that's just a sentimental thing. But I think IU Kentucky is 2 of the greatest basketball states. two of the greatest basketball programs, and hard fought. Each of them they both have 5, or does Kentucky have 6 national championships now? I know Indiana's got 5. How many does Kentucky have? Anybody know off the top of their head?
6 or 7.
I think 6 or 7. Yeah, yeah. Of late they've won. Calipari's gotten them in there one way or another. But I thought that was probably a great college basketball rivalry for a long period of time. And they're going to fire it back up next year. I guess once again, IU and Kentucky are on the schedule again, starting next season. Archie Miller put that back into play, or Calipari put it back into play. I think it was actually Calipari that backed out of the rivalry initially.
Well, yeah.
So that was my
at one time. My thing about that, Steve, is I don't have it in there, but I think just the poll we ran to one time to get like 5,000 votes in a couple of days will show you how heated that is. And my problem with it is I don't think it's just an IU versus Kentucky. I think it's overall basically just Indiana basketball, Kentucky basketball. As you know, there's not many places. I don't know how big it is now, but I know back in the 70s, 80s, hell, you played in it. The Indiana-Kentucky high school all-star game was a huge deal that drew big crowds back then, and I think you lost both of those games to Kentucky.
We did, yeah, we did. We lost both games. No bones about it. I mean, they were a better franchise that year. But the games were played.
I got a hold of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame and berated the guy that runs that because I'm like, how can you have Risley in there because he got beat twice by Kentucky?
Well, I hear you. I know. And they probably said they agree. And I'm probably going right down the same wayside as Pete Rose. Never going to be. I'm in there. I'm going to get kicked out.
No, you're nothing like Pete Rose. As far as we know.
As far as you know.
All right. What was that, number 8?
That was number 8.
Yeah, my 8's Everett Navratilova. We've already talked about that. Lucas, did we do your 8?
No. My number 8 is the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens. To me, it's the premier NHL rivalry. Dates back to 1917. It's the oldest rivalry in the NHL. From 1944 to 1978, the two teams met each other in the playoffs 15 times and faced each other in 5 Stanley Cup finals. Now, I know it was an original 6, Mike, but still, it was still a heated rivalry between two cities.
Yeah, but Lucas, there was only 6 teams in the league.
No, true, but it's still held the test of time. They've been 810 meetings.
This is why it's good to have Lucas on, though, because Steve didn't know Montreal and Toronto were rivals.
No, I knew that existed. And I know in the hockey circles that is the biggest hockey rivalry there is. So, that's a fair placing. If I was Canadian, I'd have it up probably higher than he did. Or if I was a big hockey fan, I would too. So this is all nothing more than our opinions based on what our preferences are with sports. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you this, Lucas. When I think of hockey rivalries, to me, I'm an American, so I think like Rangers Flyers, or I think Canadian-wise, I think Calgary Edmonton, just because I grew up and I remember in the '80s there was a lot of great hockey. It was the 70-game series in '86 between Calgary and Edmonton, where the guy knocks the puck off his own goalie, which loses him Game 7. Was it Steve Smith?
Yes, Billy Smith.
Yeah, I knew it was something like that. But yeah, so to me, that's what I think of when I think of those.
Yeah, being Midwest, I think of the Blackhawks Bruins. I think of that as a great hockey rivalry. Two incredibly big sports towns, two perennial Stanley Cup winning teams, great players back in the day. And I look at the Blackhawks Bruins as probably what I would call the biggest hockey rivalry that I remember. Not being a tremendous hockey fan.
All right, my number. Go ahead.
Yeah, just really quickly, another big rivalry: Boston Bruins, Montreal Canadiens. I think it's the premier American-Canadian rivalry.
Yeah, especially back in the '70s when they were playing, and it seemed like the finals, in the playoffs at least a lot. Let's see, the Bruins and Canadiens in '78. Was it '78 or '79? '79 to 7, or too many men on the ice that basically decided it.
Yes, and Don Cherry famously, raised his hands in anger, and Guy Lafleur of the Canadiens scored the game winner.
See, I remember that because I'm actually a Rangers fan, and the Rangers lost to the Canadiens in 5 after winning Game 1 that year. You're impressed with me right now, aren't you, Lucas? And Steve's falling farther behind.
I am.
You see, Lucas, that's important to Mike to be out front.
Yes, to be better than
that's
everybody
okay.
else. All right.
We let him have those.
Yeah, you got to let me have it because you know nothing about the 1979 Stanley Cup playoffs.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't care to know anything about it either.
My Rangers beat the Islanders in an exciting 6th game. Game 6 was in overtime.
Well, now they're your Rangers. Okay.
They always were.
Okay.
They've always been my hockey team. You ask anybody.
1994.
1994 beat Vancouver in 7. And you
Mark
had
Messier.
Yeah, Messier in Game 6 against the New Jersey Devils.
Guaranteed
it, went out, scored a few goals, and delivered it. So don't give me that crap.
Now, see, here's
Risley. Go ahead.
Here's what I remember about the Rangers. Wasn't one of their players a guy that dated or married Carol Alt, the really good-looking swimsuit supermodel? Yeah, that's what I remember about the Rangers. Carol Alt was somehow tied to that hockey team, and in her day, she was as good as it got in terms of swimsuit models from Sports Illustrated. So I'm all for the Rangers.
That's one of the reasons maybe that I became a Ranger fan. But I think Carol Alt was
Yeah, she was a little after, but anyway. All right.
Did she marry the Ranger?
Number 7. I think
Let's
she
keep
did.
going.
May still be married to him. I don't know.
Huh.
I don't follow Carol Alt that much anymore.
My number 7 is the Alabama-Auburn. Like I said, it could have been higher, but it can't. Because, that rivalry didn't really exist till 1980. Hell, Alabama football didn't really exist as a big entity until, the mid-late 50s when you get Bear Bryant there. And then when Bryant started to get a little bit older, you had Pat Dye, Bo Jackson showed up, and it kind of took off from there. So I got 2 other college football rivalries higher than that. And so my number 7 is Alabama-Auburn. Steve?
My number 7, staying with the basketball, I got Duke, North Carolina basketball. I think that's just right along the same thing as IU, Kentucky. Again, Tobacco Road, schools only separated by 20 miles, 25 miles. And it's a great college basketball rivalry. It's ebbed and flowed. Earlier, it was North Carolina that was the premier team. And then when Krzyzewski took hold and North Carolina lost Dean Smith, kind of went the other way. It's been more predominant toward Duke in recent years, but it still is every time those two put on uniforms and get on a court and play, I think the college basketball world watches.
Well,
even probably more so than IU Kentucky. It's probably the premier college basketball rivalry there is.
Nah, UC Xavier.
When you really
UC Xavier is much bigger. They only play once a year, and they're only 10 miles apart. And UC and Xavier have been ranked consistently in the top 25 since the early 90s. Duke and North Carolina, the thing about Duke, North Carolina is this. Every Final Four from 1988 to 2001, except for one, included either Duke or North Carolina.
Told you, yeah.
To me, I don't think North Carolina is as big now as it used to be, but a lot of this, once we get is the oversaturation of TV. Plus, let's face it, Dean Smith's no longer the coach there. And Dean Smith against Mike Krzyzewski is a little bit more interesting.
Sure.
Was how big of a rivalry was Duke and North Carolina before 1984?
Well, I think I was recruited by Duke. Bill Foster was the coach then, and North Carolina. Dean Smith recruited me to play there. And North Carolina was a preeminent team in the country. They were the perennial number ones. Duke was on a rise, and Foster was carrying them good. They got Gene Banks. I remember my freshman year. Gene Banks was a player I played against in the summer between high school and college. Was a great player.
Yeah,
and they were starting to.
Yeah, they were loaded.
Spinarkel, Jaminski. They were building. They were building to the point now where, with the loss of Dean Smith and Krzyzewski coming in, it's kind of flopped. Where I think Duke now North Carolina isn't quite as good as Duke is. Although, like you said, every year but one of them gets in there to the fight. They're great traditional programs, and I think it's truly the greatest college basketball rivalry there is.
Well, I think it was
Duke,
from
North Carolina.
1988 to about 2000. And since then, it's still up there. But let's face it, there's no college basketball rivalry that stands the test of time where you can go back 50 years and it was a big deal.
Right.
To me, that's why the college football rivalries, I think, are a little bit more ingrained and a little bit higher.
Sure.
My number 6 is Canada-Russia also. The 1972 Summit Series. I'm not Canadian, but I would imagine if Lucas were rating the greatest sports moment in the history of Canada, that would probably be number 1, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I would say either that one or Canada beating U.S. in overtime with Sidney Crosby scoring the overtime goal.
Yeah, but it's a little
different
beating us and beating the Russians. And the other thing is this.
No.
I think this is the thing. I think somebody that is under the age of 40 would probably agree with you. I think for people over 40, I don't think there would be any doubt which one was bigger.
No, I think I do agree with you in terms of the historical context significance. Canada-Russia is definitely, number 1. And then, but looking, in my lifetime for sure, it would be 2010 just because it's on Canadian
Lucas,
soil.
You're barely old enough to remember 2010, aren't you?
Well, I was in grade. I was in the 8th grade. So, I can remember. So.
Well, in 2010, me and Steve
not that
were both
old.
Juniors. So, what's your number 6, Lucas?
My number 6 is Duke UNC. Just, same with the reasons that you guys said. I'm actually a Tar Heels fan. I have family in North Carolina, so that's the team I support. 248 meetings total. North Carolina leads the rivalry, 137 to 111. Both of these schools have captured 28% of the national championships. So I like Duke UNC.
All right, Steve, what are we at? Number 5?
No, I haven't done number 6 yet.
Oh, you haven't? Well, what's your number 6?
No. Palmer Nicholas. I just think that's about as high as I could rank a golf rivalry, given the fact that it's not one of the most watched sports, and it is probably I don't want to say second-tier sport, but it doesn't draw the fan base that college football, NFL, or college basketball will draw, or the NBA or things like that. But I think it truly was a great rivalry. They had that period there pretty much through the 60s where those two, and then you're throwing in probably Gary Player a little bit to some degree, but mostly it was Nicholas and Palmer, where they rewrote the record books. They, personified the sport. They brought it into a new age. And if one of them wasn't winning, the thing people need to realize about Jack Nicklaus is he finished second in majors 20 times.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Think about that. He's got 18 majors he's won. 20 other times he finished second. And you try and compare Nicklaus to Woods, and really, you look at the body of work, it's not even close. It's in terms of being in position to win or winning majors, which is how they define the greatest golfer. It's not even really close. Tiger was much more flamboyant. But anyway, getting back to Palmer Nicholas, Palmer obviously was the people's choice. Nicholas was the methodical, demon that came in and started taking away the opportunities for Palmer to win. And but I think that is about as high as I could rank in golf. And it was a great rivalry. When you watch the old footage of them, because it was a lot younger than when I was even able to watch golf. I wasn't interested in golf then. But when you go back and watch them play and compete, the contrasting styles, the fact that they both were virtually in every tournament together, and you would always have one of them within one or two pairings, if not playing together, on the final Sunday. And I think it was a great sports rivalry all around. So I had it at number 6.
All right. I'll start this off. Number 5, I've got the Dodgers and the Yankees. The teams have met 11 times in the World Series, more than any other pair of teams. The initial significance was embodied when the two teams' proximity, they both played in New York City. The Yankees were kind of the white-collar, rich team, I guess. And the Dodgers were known as dim bums. The Dodgers have only won 2 of these meetings in the World Series, or 3, I think. Something like that, 2 or 3. But they played in the 50s, and up until 1955, the Dodgers have always come up short against the Yankees. They won a thrilling Game 7. I think Johnny Padres threw a shutout, won it 2-0. But the thing that makes this series even bigger to me is you had two teams from New York City, basically, playing for that first half. And then you put one of them in L.A. So you've got pretty much bookends, the two biggest cities in the country. You got New York, you got L.A., and then you fast forward to 1977, 78. You had back-to-back matches between the Yankees and the Dodgers. Of course, Reggie Jackson hits 3 home runs in Game 6 in 1977 to win that World Series. And then you go up to 1981, where I think the Yankees took a 2-0 lead at the start of that series. The Dodgers come back, win 4 straight, including winning Game 6, 9-2 at Yankee Stadium. So my number 5 is the Dodgers-Yankees. You look at this, you had Jackie Robinson in 1947, broke the color barrier, also broke the color barrier for the World Series. Duke Snider, you had Mickey Mantle. I mean, you had so many legends in this series, whether it was in the 50s or the 70s, where you had guys like Reggie Jackson, Ron Guidry, Steve Garvey. I mean, they were just classic matchups. To me, it's the second best rivalry in Major League Baseball history. I'll get to my other one shortly. Steve?
We're at number 5. I had Packers Bears. I think it's just a tradition in the NFL. It's probably, I think, the greatest, longest lasting rivalry. Although neither team, well, the Packers are pretty good at this point in time, though they're falling off even now. But I think over the course of time, Lombardi, Hallis, the players that have played for both teams, Nitschke, Butkus, you can go down through a longest period of time and see two of the greatest teams, two of the founding teams in the NFL. And I had that as my highest ranked NFL football rivalry. I just think it's always an interesting, fun game to watch, even though it may not carry the same weighting that it used to. But everybody always gets up for when the Packers play the Bears, and it generally gets a nighttime game in the NFL every season. At some point, it'd be a Sunday night, Thursday night, or a late game. It's always a featured game in the NFL. I think it's the epitome of rivalries, the longest lasting in the NFL. So I had Packers Bears at number 5.
All right. I don't think so, Steve, but that's all right.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
the Bears are usually almost irrelevant anymore, and they have been
they are.
for a long time. I don't have an NFL rivalry on mine. If I had to pick the greatest NFL rivalry, I know it's just for a 10-year period, but that Packers-Cowboys of the 60s could be up there. And then I think from 1970 to now, I think maybe the most heated rivalry that has been consistently would be the Cowboys and the Redskins, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good call too.
But I'm not gonna argue with you, because Packers and Bears, I mean, they've played since 1918, played almost 200 games.
Right.
Lucas.
That's why. I just said it's.
Yeah, you're fine. I'm not disagreeing with you. Other than I am.
Yeah.
But I understand.
I agree with you though. It's the only football NFL rivalry I put in my top 10. That says that I don't think there are a lot of great rivalries because of free agency now. Players don't stay with teams for their entire career. They jump around. They move. Coaches go in and out. I mean, you had Lombardi and Hallis. I mean, Lombardi was only at Green Bay, 10, 11 years, but it seems like when you talk about coaches for the Packers, you only think of Lombardi, and you always think of George Hallis. And, I just think for the duration of the time of the NFL, it's only what I would call what I would say true, lasting rivalry. Everything else changes when players sign new free agent contracts. The rivalry goes away. So,
all right, Lucas.
I mean, for a short period of time, Manning versus Brady was a great rivalry. But then Peyton leaves and goes to Denver. I can't even say Colts Patriots, because Patriots usually won the games. But the Manning Brady rivalry was a great rivalry. But then now Manning's out of the picture and gone, and that rivalry just it lasted 5-6 years maybe. That was it. But the Bears Packers have gone on forever.
The Colts Patriots wasn't really a rivalry because it was too one-sided, I think.
No, I agree. I said Peyton and Brady. I didn't say Colts Patriots. I said Brady versus Manning was a great rivalry.
All right.
So, all right, move on. I'm sorry.
Well, it's kind of my same thing there. It's when it's so one-sided, it's hard. It's like the Bengals and Steelers they're kind of a great rivalry, but the Bengals don't win enough in the rivalry to make it that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So it's not a shot just because you're a Colts fan. It's just both sides that got to win. All right, Lucas.
I didn't put it in the top 10. I didn't put either one of them in the top 10. So I didn't think it was that big of a rivalry.
Lucas, number 5. Lucas.
My number 5 is Lakers Celtics. I think it's to me the best basketball rivalry. Two of the most storied franchises in the NBA. Obviously, they met a record 12 times in the NBA Finals, starting with their first Finals meeting in 1959. Of course, you remember Larry Bird, Magic Johnson really rejuvenated the game of basketball, like we've talked about on this show. In my lifetime, I think the rivalry really rejuvenated when it was in 2008, 2009, 2010, when you got Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen for the Celtics, Kobe Bryant for the Lakers. Of course, Lakers won in 2010 in 7 games over the Celtics, a great series all around. So I got Celtics and Lakers in my number 5 spot.
Let me explain something to you, Lucas.
Let it go. I swear to God, he's going to put Riggs. He's going to put Riggs and King as number 1. I swear to God, he's going to do it.
2009, 2010 Celtics Lakers is nothing like the 60s or the 80s. I wish he would have been.
Let it go.
I'm not saying that.
He made his pick. Let him talk.
I never said
it was similar. It wasn't similar because I've actually got that higher. Number 4, Lucas.
I got the Packers Bears. Again, I do agree with you both that NFL rivalries are very difficult to come about because of free agency. But I mean, you can't argue the fact that the two clubs have combined 22 NFL championships, including 5 Super Bowl championships. The Packers lead the rivalry 96-94-6. It's a really, really close rivalry between the two. So I got the Packers and the Bears at number 4.
Hey, Mike, I'm going to make a bold prediction here. That wasn't even on his top 10 list until I said it at number 5. And while he wouldn't respond to you quickly when you asked him who his number 5 was, he was on Google trying to find out how many championships they had won together. That was never even originally on his list. And then I say it at number 5.
I believe that. He probably had like some Iditarod thing on there.
Yeah. He's moving Billie Jean and Bobby Riggs right now. He's moving them down to save little face. I guarantee he's putting them down to 2.
I bet he's not even going to bring him up now.
It wasn't even on his original top 10 list until I said Bears Packers. He's not even old enough to when the Bears Packers was a rival.
Yeah.
So,
they did meet in the NFC Championship game in 2010. Packers, of course, with a way better.
He's reading right off of Google. Yeah. I'm reading the same article you're reading. So.
Oh,
that's not true. That's fake news. Fake news.
I think Steve's done taking everything that hangs off of you off too, Lucas. Number 4, Steve.
Oh my.
Number 4, I've got a tie, and it embodies the body of work. And I think my number 4 is 2 of the greatest college football rivalries: Notre Dame, USC, and OSU, Michigan. I think they're equal. I know on Thanksgiving Day you would get both those games. There were season-ending games sometimes determining national championship status, and then going to the Rose Bowl before we had the BCA playoff system. These games were decided. National champions were pretty well decided. Then you go to a bowl game. But I look at OSU and Michigan. And again, that rivalry I don't think is as strong as it used to be, because I don't think the Big Ten is as strong as it used to be. And OSU and Notre Dame, USC, I think it's not as strong either. But I think over the period of time, and when those games were shown, which is usually over Thanksgiving weekend, everybody sat down with too much tryptophan in their stomach from eating too much turkey, and Grandpa snoring in the recliner with a plate of stuffing on his stomach, waiting to see how long he would snore loud enough it would fall over. And you would turn on USC, and you could actually probably throw in Nebraska, Oklahoma in there too, although I was not a Southwest Conference fan at that time, or the Big Ten, and I love Notre Dame, so it's from Indiana.
They weren't in the Southwest Conference, so
Southeast or wherever they were in.
Because you were trying to watch them in the Southwestern Conference, that's why you never saw them play.
Okay.
Come on, Risley.
But
at least Google it like Lucas does. Put up an effort.
I don't Google. No, I don't. But I just threw them in because I remember Thanksgiving. Sitting down and watching those two games every Thanksgiving. USC Notre Dame and OSU Michigan. They were on, one right after the other.
Really?
And you would sit there for 8 hours and veg out and watch two great college football rivalries play.
On Thanksgiving?
Yeah, over Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the Friday.
Yeah.
Or the Saturday. They played on the Saturday. Because if you remember,
I think they played
the Friday game was usually Pitt and Penn State back in the 70s.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe even Nebraska Oklahoma played on Friday some too.
Yeah.
But it was chock full. They were chock full of great college football rivalries on Thanksgiving weekend. And to me, Notre Dame, USC, Michigan, OSU stand out as the two of all the great football rivalries. I bet you probably looked up. That's probably when Auburn played Alabama a lot too in that time period.
No, it wasn't. Not in the 70s because
wasn't it? Okay.
I don't think Auburn even got close to beating them in the 70s.
Okay, yeah, maybe. But I just remember that was the greatest weekend of college football. Thanksgiving weekend. And
my number 4 is Ohio State, Michigan. Okay. They're the second biggest college football rivalry of all time. I don't think there's any doubt who the number 1 college rivalry is, but I'll get to that later. It really took off when Bo Schembechler got there in like 68, 69. Pulled one of the bigger upsets ever when they beat Ohio State. I think it was in 69. It was 69 or 70. I really don't Google things like these guys do. But when you look at it, it's still a huge rivalry. So I'm going to put it up there. I think it's always been a rivalry, even back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So I'm going to go number 4, Ohio State, Michigan. Steve, number 3.
Number 3 to me. Did we get Lucas's number 4?
Did we, Lucas?
Yeah, it was Packers Bears.
Yeah, his was stupid.
The Packers Bears. Okay. Yeah, it was stupid to bring it number 4. Yeah. My number 3.
Put it number 5. That's such a big difference.
Well, but still, my number 3. And I can flip 3 and 2 either way real quickly, but I'm going to go with number 3 as Frazier Ali. And I just think that in terms of what I remember boxing, I remember more than anything Cosell and Frazier and Ali. And I know Foreman may have been a greater fighter and there may have been stronger, but I just think the preeminence of Frazier and Ali and the hype and everything that went around those fights, to me, it's the greatest rivalry in all boxing ever of all time, to me. And I'm not a boxing aficionado, don't claim to be. But when somebody asks me what would be your most fun ever being involved in watching boxing, it'd be Frazier Ali. So that's my number 3. And I could easily move it to number 2. I'm going to stick with my number 2 at number 2, which is Billie Jean and Bud Rick. And I had one question for you, Mike.
What?
When you were talking about the OSU or the OSU Michigan was not the greatest college rivalry, football rivalry of all time. Does Xavier and Cincinnati have football programs too then? Because I'm sure you're going to say the greatest college football rivalry of all time
used to.
is Xavier and Cincinnati. So I'm sure that's your number 1 football rivalry.
Yeah, I'm sure it is too. Number 3, Lucas.
I got Canada-Russia hockey in this spot. I think for the reason both of you brought up, I think it's, to me, one of the big, if not the biggest sports moment in Canadian history. I think in the backdrop of the Cold War. And, they produced great hockey, both teams, and it was great that Canada won the 7th series in the 70s and really continued to dominate hockey. But both countries, really produced some epic hockey. So I got Canada-Russia number 3.
All right, number 3, I got Yankees, Red Sox. All the way back to 1918, where Babe Ruth was basically sold to the Yankees because they wanted to. The Red Sox owner wanted to fund a play called No No Nanette, which was even worse than that ABBA musical, probably. Then you go on, 1978, Bucky Dent. Bucky Dent hits the home run. The Yankees come from like 13 to 14 games back in June to actually win on a single-game playoff, all the way up to 2003, 2004, which were both great 7-game series. 2004, the Red Sox come from 3 games to nothing down to beat them, go on to win their first World Series since 1918. So my number 3 is the Yankees Red Sox. My number 2 is Steve's number 3, which is Ali Frazier. For multiple reasons I've talked about so much, I really don't even want to talk about it right now.
Right.
But Lucas, what's your number 2?
My number 2 will be Michigan-Ohio State. Personally, I think it's the great, college football rivalry. Again, every Thanksgiving weekend, that's the game, especially in Canada, that we really follow because, Michigan, of course, being so close to Canada. There's been some great games, of course, between those two schools. Good NFL talent coming out of, both schools as well, including Tom Brady for Michigan. And yeah, I mean, it's a rivalry. Each side made 43 bowl appearances. Michigan holds the edge in national and Big Ten titles, but Ohio State has more Heisman Trophy winners and Big Ten division titles. Michigan, both teams have met 114 times, so it's stood the test of time. I got Michigan, Ohio State at number 2.
So you think that's the biggest, most important football rivalry?
I think it is. I think it draws the most hype. I think it does.
Okay. Steve, number 2.
Number 2, I have Yankees Red Sox. And again, I had Ollie. I said I could have flipped 2 and 3. I had Ollie Frazier 3 and Yankees Red Sox. But I just think the historical value, like I said, going back to 1918 between the Yankees and the Red Sox, and you wonder how many championships the Red Sox would have won had they not had to face the Yankees all the time in the pennant race, being so close together. The curse, the Babe Ruth trade, everything for all the reasons. It's much like, and still today, I think, even today, I believe, as much as I can recall, it seems like the last series those two teams played against each fall baseball is each other. The baseball seems to always end with a Yankees-Red Sox series. More times than not, it's determining playoff position or one team getting into playoffs. Right now they're battling it out 1 and 2, 2 of the 3 best records in baseball right now. So I had it at number 2, but like I said, it was a toss-up between Ollie Frazier and Red Sox Yankees for all the reasons you've already stated.
All right, Lucas, numero 1.
Well, for me, it's similar to Steve. I think it's a toss-up for me between Yankees, Red Sox, Ollie Frazier for the number 1. I think with Yankees, Red Sox, both of you guys have made good points about that. Obviously, with the sale of Babe Ruth, the whole curse of the Bambino that lasted all the way to 2004 really captured the baseball world, and especially with Boston and their gaffes before 2004, including that Aaron Boone walk-off homer in 2003 ALCS. Of course, there was controversy about whether to take Pedro Martinez out. Taking in Game 4, guys, of that ALCS, Red Sox are down 0-3. They're down to the 9th inning, 2 out. Mariano Rivera is coming in to close for the Yankees. So more often than not, that should have been a sweep for the Yankees. But destiny was on the Red Sox side, and they came back and just a terrific display of baseball. And I think Ollie Frazier, of course, I think just has the significance of the historical context of the time. Of course, during the Vietnam War, Ollie had to strip his title because of, his decision to defect from the Army. Frazier was really rising in the boxing world, and then these two, go at it, of course. Frazier wins the first fight. Ollie then wins the next 2, including the Thrilla in Manila in 1975. So it's tough for me, but, it's kind of like 1A, 1B. You're picking hairs. Obviously those two, had, that great 3 fight. The Yankees and the Red Sox have met over 1,000 times. So, but I'd say those 2.
All right. Steve, number 1.
In my book, to me, being where my heart lies where I'm from, I've got Lakers Celtics as number 1. I just think between those 2 programs in the NBA, they have dominated the league. year in and year out. That rivalry saved the NBA, I believe, for the most part. And I just think that of all the rivalries played and championships won, players have played those two teams for their careers and not just for a free agency period. Most of the greats of those teams played most of their careers with those teams. And I just think that embodies to me what rivalries are. And I think you're going to see that rivalry reestablish itself here sooner than later. As LeBron comes to Los Angeles, I don't think, it's going to happen next year, but as LeBron helps develop young talent, Celtics are definitely on the rise and going to be probably the class of the East and have come back to none that time. But I can't think of anything that embodies to me a great, long-lasting rivalry of championship teams that consistently win championships, either against each other or if one's dominating, one's not dominating, the other is dominating. And they eventually all seen the roads coming back to those two teams playing each other. So I had Lakers Celtics as number one.
All right. I think you're both nuts. And my number one is something neither one of you even had in the top 10.
Bobby Riggs, Billie Jean?
There's only one rivalry.
Well, he's going to say Miami Notre Dame is what he's going to say.
It's lasted for over 100 years.
Oh, Harvard Yale?
No. In 1890, a Navy football player challenged Cadet Dennis Mann to the game. Well, if you don't think Army-Navy's the greatest, shut up and listen, and I'll teach you something. All right, Mitchie accepted the challenge.
Lucas, hang on, Mike. Lucas, I'm going to talk over you now. Lucas, do you ever understand how he berates us if we don't agree with him? But do we berate him if he doesn't agree with us?
Remember this.
I don't.
Remember this.
I say good call.
Every time.
Good call. No, Army Navy's a good call.
Because every time I'm done.
But you aren't the smartest person in the world.
You're right.
It's just your opinion, Mike.
Whatever.
It's just your opinion.
What, now I'm offended. Who's smarter? All right, so after a mere 3 Army-Navy games, the tradition was suspended in 1894 to 1892. As the story goes, the Navy win in 1893 prompted an incident between a rear admiral, which sounds gay as hell, and a brigadier general that nearly led to a duel. The two teams were restricted to only playing home games. The series picks up in 1899, but this series gets even bigger and becomes bigger than life. In 1944 and 1945, Army-Navy games were the apex of college football, which makes them the apex of sports in America because college football was as big as it got back then. Both years, Army was ranked number 1. Navy was ranked number 2. 70,000 people attended both games. The thing about the game is this. To be able to attend the game, you had to buy tickets, but you also had to purchase war bonds to help with the war effort. I just think when you look at this, I mean, you talked about the Lakers-Celtics being the epitome of a rivalry, and it is professionally. But when you look at Army-Navy, I mean, the post-game, what happens after the game? To me, there's no rivalry that shows us more of what rivals should be. Because in this day and age, and I know I love Lakers-Celtics because they're getting in fist fights and everything, but isn't it a little bit more special when you can have a rivalry like that and you end the game arm in arm singing each other's song? And then you go from that to, according to when this time is, if you played in 1970 in the Army-Navy game, it's possible a year later you're fighting side by side with this guy that was your biggest enemy. And the other thing is this. The thing about this rivalry is this. I mean, every year I watch it. I've got friends that were either in the military or have somebody that was in the military. I got one of my best friends who was a Marine, so he cheers for Navy. He's always calling me all excited. I had uncles that were in the Marines. The thing about it is this. Army-Navy is the one event where almost everybody in this country knows somebody that has a connection to one side or the other. I think that's why it's the biggest rivalry. I mean, we sit here, if you're a Celtic or a Laker fan, That's fine. I was a Pacers fan. I liked when the Celtics and Lakers played in the finals, but I wasn't really connected other than Larry Bird was from Indiana. If I am a fan of Kentucky's NBA team, which I want to bring up to all the idiots on Facebook, you don't have one for a reason. You're not as special as Indiana. But when you look at this, there is a legitimate connection. I guarantee you this, Steve. I don't know your family history, but somebody was in a branch of the service at some point. And this is what I'm saying. This rivalry is so special because it connects all of America. You really probably 80 to 90% of the population of the United States that likes college football, there's a connection of why they cheer for this team or that team. It's not just because the color of their helmets are really pretty or cool, or I really like this coach, or I really like this player. This is real. This is Army, Navy. I don't see how you can get more American than that. And to me, I don't see how you can get a bigger rivalry than where an entire country, everybody has a tie somewhere or the other to one side or the other.
Mike, I watch the Army-Navy game every year. They do happen to telecast it up in Canada. It is a real special game, and it's amazing that they honor the military. I think why it may not be in my top 10 or Steve's top 10. I think for me, again, it's all about setting parameters for what constitutes to be a great rivalry. There's no doubt the Army-Navy game transcends sport. And as you say, it brings fans from all corners of America together. But I think for me, I constitute a great rivalry to have a little bit more of that kind of edge, if you will. Like you're saying Lakers,
so you don't think there's an edge between Army?
There.
I guarantee you this. This is the thing you're missing. The edge between Army and Navy is greater than any of these rivals we've talked about. It's just not done by a bunch of assholes. These are actually people that want to win. They're not people that are sitting there thinking I could get an NFL contract out of it. If you're Army-Navy game and you're a senior, that's the last time you're ever going to play football. They want to win that game more than anybody that ever played for the Lakers and the Celtics because it means more. Because if I play at Army or I play at Navy, it probably means a lot more to me than a freshman that plays at the University of Kentucky in a game against Louisville. And the thing is this, when you say the game doesn't mean that much, the teams aren't that good.
No,
every rivalry we brought up that was a sports rivalry, Ohio State, Michigan sucked for the first 40 or 50 years, a lot of the first 40 or 50 years. Army-Navy between 1910 and 1955, 1960, were always two of the top 10 teams in college football. So this is a rivalry where you had two of the top teams in the biggest rivalry for a longer time that Auburn and Alabama have ever been at the top. You got Earl Blake, Vince Lombardi. We talked about Vince Lombardi before. Vince Lombardi was an assistant coach for Earl Blake. That's basically where he got his start when he came out of Fordham. He went from Fordham to coaching high school football to being a coach under Earl Blake at West Point. And when you look at this, Earl Blake was probably at one point considered the greatest coach in college football history. If he's not number one, he's number two behind Newt Rockne. So this is a rivalry that from 1890 to probably 1960, these were two top 10 schools. And the thing we have a tendency to do is only think of a rivalry as being of something that's happened lately. When you look at the Bears and Packers, the Bears have only been to one Super Bowl in their history. They haven't won a championship since 1963. The Packers in the 1970s made the playoffs once. The Bears in the 1970s made the playoffs twice. Between the two of them, neither one of them won a game the entire decade. In the 1980s, the Packers made the playoffs once and won one game. So when you look at this, it's been very rarely since 1950 where the Packers and Bears were both relevant at the same time. And the list was supposed to be the most historical rivals. And I challenge you to find another rivalry where for 60 years, two schools were in the top 10.
All right.
I mean,
Good call.
I'm
not going to piss on the U.S. military.
The thing is,
it's a great rivalry. It's a meaningless rivalry now.
It's not a meaningless rivalry.
It's other than the tradition of it. It's other than the tradition. Neither team competes for national championships. Neither team rarely competes for bowl games.
Rarely competes.
And
for bowl
but
games.
it's a bowl game.
Navy's
it's
been
a great
a
rivalry.
bowl game for 30 straight years.
And yeah.
Indiana would
it's
kill to be Navy football.
We didn't mention Indiana anywhere in the loop either.
I know, but what I'm saying is
we get its place.
I mean, to say that these
it's a
are
great
teams
rivalry.
that don't make bowl games is kind of nuts, especially when you're talking about Navy. Navy is consistently a top 25 program.
And let me redirect. A relevant bowl game.
Well,
okay, let me just go back because there are enough bowl games that any team that finishes above 500 plays in a bowl game.
But the thing you miss is
that's why Indiana can't even get to 500. They can't play in a bowl game.
You're not allowed.
All you got to do is go 6-5, and you're in a bowl game.
Navy's not allowed to compete for a national championship. It's illegal. Just like Central Florida's not allowed to.
All right.
It's not fair. You have to be in
they're not allowed to.
5. Yeah, they're not allowed to, because there's no way that they're ever going to be allowed to.
They're not good enough.
Yeah, they're not good enough. I guarantee you this: the Navy team of 2 years ago that went 11-2 and had 4 wins against top 25 teams could have played with anybody. They're not going to be allowed to have the chance. I mean, this is something that's designed for Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, schools like that will bring in numbers. They're not going to let Navy do that. You know what? You're never going to see Alabama schedule a home-and-home series with Navy. Because with Navy's triple option, they can beat anybody. I mean, every year Navy upsets somebody that's ranked in the top 20. I mean, college football is not really fought on fair ground, especially when you're Alabama and the SEC and play nobody.
When you announced the title of today's show, what did you say it was in terms of rivalries? What
the top 10 sports rivalries of all time.
That's not what you said, though.
Yeah, it is.
You used a different word. No, play it back.
Play what back?
Traditional. I think you said traditional, somewhere along those lines.
No, I said the top 10 sports rivalries of all time.
You used the descriptor. Anyway, the article that you posted on our website is the greatest sports rivalries of all time. Great to me in terms of compares to winning at some point in time.
And they do.
They don't win championships.
Okay. Army and Navy didn't win championships.
They did. They did a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Won a lot. Yeah, but you know what?
In the early days.
How many of the Bears and Packers won in the last?
Yeah, I agree. The Bears Packers was
3 or 4.
Yeah, that was. But I didn't put the Bears Packers at number 1 either. I said in terms of NFL rivalries, it probably is the most endearing rivalry in the NFL is the Bears Packers. I prefaced my conversation. It's a relevant rivalry now, but it's probably the most endearing NFL rivalry.
It's an irrelevant.
It's not relevant.
Irrelevant.
Call it. Yeah, say what you want. I agree, but I think it'd be hard pressed to say that Army-Navy is the greatest. It is a great rivalry. It is a great traditional rivalry, bar none. Everybody watches Army-Navy. You're cheering for your country. You guys do go fight arm in arm together. And they all sing each other's fights. It's great. It's a spectacle. And it's our chance to get up in Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia on a snowy day and watch Army-Navy play and salute our troops. The president makes a trip to the game all the time. But it's not one of the greatest sports rivalries of all time. I consider it great.
Damn.
Not generally lately, Navy's been dominating the rivalry. I mean, when Army gets in the hunt, it's like, oh, my God.
That, right?
Okay. But how many in the last 10, 20 years?
Yeah, Navy
pretty
won
much
14
Navy.
in a row before that.
Yeah, okay. So the last 2 years, they get it. Right. But in terms of greatest sports rivalries, I think of teams like the Celtics and Lakers or Ali Frazier that beat the crap out of each other, and they're always playing for a championship when they play each other. You're putting the 2 best teams in the greatest arena on the greatest stage, and to me, that's a great rivalry. And it always comes back to those 2 teams historically. Yankees, Red Sox, Russia, Canada, but Army-Navy, it's an endearing, traditional, God, I feel great about my country rivalry. And we all watch it, and we love it. But to say it's the greatest sports rivalry of all time, I challenge you on that one.
Well, then you're wrong.
And yes, my father was in the military. My father was retired serviceman, and I was born in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I'm an Army brat. I spent the first 5 years of my life in Germany because my father was stationed over in Germany. So I know all about the military and all about its rivalry.
Well, you pick Ohio State, Michigan as a better rivalry, though. And when you
because generally in the time when that rivalry was hot, those two teams were contending for the Big Ten championship. It wasn't divisional.
But
it was, one of you teams going to get to go to the Rose Bowl.
For 60 years being ranked in the top 10 and winning multiple national championships.
Yeah, from 1890 to 1940.
1955.
Since then, they've to 1960, right? But since then, the last 50 years, it's been a great traditional thing to watch, and it's a great salute to our vets and our servicemen in our country.
Well, there's no rivalry.
It's a great rivalry.
That existed in 1890 that still exists today.
No, they probably. Well, they'll be reborn. I mean, but by the way, like you'll never see the rivalry between Ohio State and Michigan anymore because of the way the league's broken down. Those two teams don't even get to play for the Big Ten title anymore. They got to play each other before they get to the Big Ten championship game. Then you get Wisconsin playing Michigan or Ohio State or Penn State.
Because
we weren't even in the Big Ten when those two teams were great. Anymore. No, there are some. No, there are still.
There are some, Mike. Come on.
What is there, Lucas?
There are some, Mike. Come on, Mike. Mike, you're tanking. Mike, you're tanking right now, buddy. I'm telling you.
Come on.
You are going the route of Billy Jean. You are going the route of Billy Jean and Bobby Riggs.
Give me a rivalry right now.
There are great sports rivalries.
Give me the rivalry right now. Give me a great rivalry.
Duke, North Carolina is still a great college basketball rivalry. Every time they play, it's with the highest rated game on TV.
Auburn, Alabama.
It is. The ratings on it.
Auburn, Alabama football. Auburn, Alabama football. I mean, it's a great rivalry. Okay. It still goes on. Both those teams, all those teams contend for national championships every year.
The TV rankings are not as good now as they were 10 years ago.
They aren't for anything, Mike.
Exactly.
Earnhart and Wallace.
Exactly.
Earnhart and Gerald Waltrip was as great a rivalry as there was.
Oh, sure there was, since nobody knew about it.
You had the mouth. You don't go back and watch old NASCAR races of Waltrip and Earnhardt.
Why would I do that?
You want to talk about great rivalry?
If I was going to do that, I'd go watch the Dukes of Hazzard. That would be more entertaining.
Well, and that shows your mentality because you're talking out your ass right now.
I'm not talking out my ass.
You're talking out your ass.
Mike.
I'm just saying.
You are talking out your ass.
I didn't know.
You're trashing the whole program right now by bringing up Dukes of Hazzard in the same context as any great sports rivalry. You're trashing the whole program right now.
It's trashing the whole program.
You're making us be irrelevant. You're making us be irrelevant.
Mike.
We went through a great list of all great, and I put Army Navy. It's a good call. It's a good call. I agree. I did not have it in there because I didn't think of winning. I put winning into the equation of what's a great rivalry. But when I look back at the way you described it, it is a great. Should be in everybody's top 10. Army Navy. And when you said that, I'm like, damn, that's a good call, Mike. I didn't think about that.
Waltrip Wallace. To me, I think of Richard Petty and Cale Yarborough.
No, Waltrip
Late
Wallace
70s,
was a bigger
early
rivalry.
80s, because it was a bigger sport then.
Petty won 200 races. Yarborough won 60 or 70 races.
Yeah, but come on, they actually got in fist
No,
fights,
don't go down. Don't take a left turn on a track you don't know where you're going on. Don't go there. I'll kill you in NASCAR.
Oh yeah.
Leafs and Canadians in hockey is still relevant, Mike. So there are sports rivalries.
Mike, it's a good call, Mike.
They're not like they were.
It's a good call.
The Leafs and Canadians is not like it was.
Put a poll up.
Put
a poll up right now, Mike. Here, put a poll up. Would you rather watch on a given Sunday? Would you rather watch the Lakers play the Celtics or Army play Navy? Put that poll up. See where it goes.
That's a stupid poll because they're completely different.
Well, of course it is, because it'd be overwhelmingly Lakers-Celtics.
Because it's different.
Because it's a greater rivalry.
I don't think Lakers-Celtics right now. I mean,
Lakers-Celtics.
Wait a second. Wait.
No.
Lakers-Celtics has been irrelevant since, except for a couple years. Lakers-Celtics has been irrelevant since 1988.
And it's coming back in the next 2 years. It'll be the biggest rivalry in the NBA.
Sure it is.
Sure it is. Cycle through.
It's
but
not a cycle
Army Navy's never come back from the 50s or 60s.
And there's normal ebb and flow.
Not with Army Navy. It ebbed. It ebbed right out the tide. Boat drivers were taking the Army boys over to fight. It ebbed.
Okay. Well, the ratings on it are pretty good, and it's the only game that gets its own day.
I agree. I agree. I 100% agree with you. It's a big game. It's huge, but it's not one of the greatest sports rivalries. You have to throw championships and win.
For the Lakers and Celtics to be relevant again, they're going to play in the finals. And that's not going to happen.
It will in a couple of years.
I don't think it will.
I think you'll see it happen in a couple of years. Within a couple of years, they'll be back in the finals.
I highly doubt it because everybody that tells me in a couple of years
that's an easy prediction to make. The odds are in your favor.
LeBron James is going to be close to 40 years old in a couple of years.
I don't think LeBron James is going to be part of it. I think he's going to help rebuild the Lakers, is what Magic sees it as. Yeah. He's going to help rebuild that team, and they're going to think they're going to get a lot of TV money. They dump their cash values, jump through the roof. You can't get a Lakers ticket out here.
That rivalry will still never be what it was.
No, I agree. Yeah, you'll never get anything as great as Lakers-Celtics.
Because it's a made-up rivalry.
But remember,
2008,
the Lakers were the Minneapolis Lakers, too.
I remember, what was that, 2010 when they played Game 7 against each other? Lucas?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I watched the game.
I got excited. I watched the game and started the game because I'm thinking, man, this is the Lakers and the Celtics. This is just like it was when I was younger. And like 10 minutes into the game, I'm switching around looking for other things. And I flipped back and I watched the fourth quarter. And I think it ended like, what was it, like 86-79 or something?
Yeah, but no rivalry.
Came back in the second half.
It was just
no rivalry develops over one season. Okay, a rivalry takes years to create.
But that's my point.
Not one game, not one season.
That's why you won't get a Lakers Celtics, because they
would
have
eventually
to be in multiple finals.
They'll recycle through. They have. Before Magic and Bird came around, the Lakers and Celtics were irrelevant then too.
Yeah.
Then here comes Magic and Bird, and that rivalry cycles back up. It cycles down now a little bit, and they're rebuilding, and that rivalry will cycle right back to the top.
I don't think
in 2 years, when you and I are having this conversation, we'll sit there and go, damn, here are the Lakers and Celtics again.
Yeah, it's a miracle that Larry and Magic ended up on those teams to recycle that. That is not something that normally happens.
Miracles happen, Mike.
Not very
Miracles happen. U.S. beat Russia in 1980. Do you believe in miracles? Al Michaels made the call.
What did he say?
Yeah.
What did he say at the end of the game where they won the gold medal against Finland?
I didn't watch that
America
game.
Wins gold.
Really?
America wins gold.
No, he yelled, "The impossible dream comes true."
Okay, great.
That's a great quote.
Yes.
Great quote.
To me, it's even better than "Do you believe in merit?" The impossible dream comes true. But Steve didn't even watch it because Bobby Knight was probably out making him run.
No, because we were playing Michigan that day. All right, we watched the on tape. We watched in East Lansing, getting ready to play Michigan State. We watched the game that night in our rooms on tape delay, and then the next Sunday, or whenever the Gold Medal game was, we were playing Michigan. So we didn't have the opportunity to watch the game. We were going creating our own dynasty, creating our own rivalry.
You realize the game started at 9 in the morning.
And we had shoot-around, pregame meal. You know, there's a little more to winning national championships in college basketball than there is arena football.
Really?
We put a little bit of effort into it.
You know what?
Yeah.
If you you should have just watched the game, because if I remember right, y'all got your ass smoked in the Sweet 16 by Purdue that year.
Yeah, okay. Whatever.
Okay.
Where's your
you
championship
picked
ring?
on me first.
Where's your national championship ring?
Here we go.
Where's your world
He's a sore loser. You're a sore loser, Mike.
Ring? You're a sore loser, Steve. You brought it up.
World championship of arena football.
Lucas, did he not bring that up first?
Yes, I did. I take full credibility.
Yeah, so how are you going to call me a sore loser? You brought it up.
You won't shut up.
I won't.
You're picking on us.
Yeah, I'm picking.
I just said your choice of the number one greatest rivalry was weak. That's all. I didn't say anything about you personally.
I didn't say anything about you personally either.
Yes, you
did. I never
did.
do, but you're always ripping on. When did I say something personally about you?
I don't know. You have to replay the whole show.
Lucas, did you hear me say anything personal to Steve?
Well, you certainly said something personal to me about Canada.
You don't count, Lucas. Be quiet. Lucas, did I say anything personal to Steve? Hey, Lucas, has Steve ever said anything personal to you?
No.
Lucas.
No. Well, Lucas. No.
I like Lucas.
Except for the Google stuff.
The what stuff?
Yeah,
But that
yeah,
one,
yeah. And
I
do the
never
same thing.
claimed
I'm
that
laughing
you
with
knew
you because I do
nothing
the
and
same
had to
thing.
Google everything, did I, Lucas?
Hey, Lucas, let's shut Mike up. Let's talk about something relevant. Let's talk about the Iditarod and how we're going to cover that. Let's just leave Mike alone.
Lucas,
Let
tell everybody
him,
about the way you're going to cover the Iditarod.
Let him start ripping on
for us.
himself. Let's talk about the Iditarod, something very relevant. You know, how are we going to cover it?
Well, I'm going to go to Alaska.
On a sled yet?
I'm going to go to Alaska, find myself a dog and a sled, and give you the up to the minute coverage.
I want this.
And
read my ass off.
Can we have dogs on for interviews?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll schedule
Steve,
it with
Steve's
their owners.
got an Australian. Don't you have an Australian dog? Should be able to translate Canadian barking, don't you think, Steve?
Now, you see, again, here's the idiocracy when he doesn't pull up Google. The Australian Shepherd is an American California-bred dog. It's one of the few true American breeds of dogs there are. It's only named Australia because the Australian cattlemen brought their dogs over here and started breeding them in, and the creation of the breed of Australian Shepherd actually was created by Australian cattlemen who came over here to farm and to herd sheep and cattle, and they built this breed. It's totally bred. It's a California dog.
But it's Australian.
So, but then you wouldn't know that because you don't have Google going right now.
I wouldn't know
you're
that
mouth off again about something you don't know what you're talking about.
I don't care. You know what's
Mike
stupid? What's stupid, Dan?
You brought it up.
The fact that it's an American dog and you call it a freaking Australian Shepherd.
And that's actually not true because my dogs are called miniature American Shepherds.
No, see, you
because
told
AKC
me
recognized that
your dog is an Australian Shepherd. You told me my Australian Shepherd likes to swim in the pool.
It is by one breed recognizer as a miniature Australian Shepherd. By the AKC, it is a miniature American Shepherd because they recognize this is a true American breed.
You even said "G'day, mate" when you told me about it.
G'day, mate.
Yeah, well, I was cooking shrimp on the Barbie, eh? Yeah.
Yeah,
we're just trying to be. Of Elle McPherson.
I know you're trying to be diverse and multicultural with it, so.
In my pool, it's just like the Great Barrier Reef.
I don't know. What do they got in Canada? You got any cool animals in Canada better than huskies?
Not you, thank God.
Polar bears. Not Mike Goodpaster.
Guys, we're dragging on here. We're dragging on.
Well, we're going to wrap it
great
up.
List.
We're going to let Steve go, and me and Lucas are going to talk more about Canadian sports.
I don't think Lucas wants any part of you. I think he's tired of you, too. Lucas, you want to go off and have another call on our own? Jesus.
I mean, look.
Army, Navy.
It was a good
all the great
discussion.
rivalries.
I disagree with Army, Navy. I think it's important for beyond the sport, but in terms of, I still put it in my top 10.
The tradition of the rivalry.
Top 15.
Well, how about this? We'll run a poll.
Still very important.
We'll run a poll. Is Army-Navy a great rivalry?
Of course it is. We all agree it's a
How do
good
you want the
rivalry.
poll then?
But it's not the greatest rivalry.
What would you watch? Army-Navy or in its heyday, would you rather watch an Army-Navy game or would you rather watch a Celtics-Lakers game?
In its
Put that poll
heyday,
up.
Army-Navy, 1944. Number one against
Okay,
number
put
two.
the poll up. Put the poll up.
Put the poll up, Mike.
Put the poll up, Mike. Just let the votes fall where they may.
All right.
Put it up.
We'll do that.
We'll see.
So, stupid people go
You
vote
can
for
even
Lakers Celtics. People that want to be right.
You specify the year. Put up the 1946, which nobody saw because it probably wasn't even on TV except for film reels.
And it was on TV, by the way. And it was on national radio, and it was the most viewed event in history at that point. 14 people watched.
In 46? 14 people watched that TVs in their house.
There was only 3 TVs.
And 13 of those, 14 of those were in the White House. So.
Yes. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. We'll be back tomorrow at noon for some reason.
Hey, Lucas.
Special guest that'll come up
score
soon.
one for us today, buddy. We brought him down today.
You didn't bring anything
Yeah, we brought Mike down.
No problem, Lucas.
Hey.
He was done.
Say goodbye, Mike.
Yeah, I was
Mike,
done.
sign us off.
I was trying to until you interrupted me.
Okay.
All right. All right, guys. So you can hear us tomorrow at noon. You can also hear all of our shows on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes. Lucas, do you know that there's no contractual agreement for you ever to be back on this show again, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So
Lucas, don't sweat that.
Wait a second.
Don't sweat that crap,
Are you
Lucas.
sure you want us to keep hanging with Risley?
Yeah, I'm not.
I didn't think so. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. So for Lukas Weese, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.